Hello, welcome to Rigger Sports Hotline Live.
Hey, he's back. He's back. I have to tell you, Daniel, I'm thrilled, delighted, using your catchphrases now. Delighted that you're joining us back on Hotline Live. You were sorely missing. By the way, it appears you've got something of a fan club out there because the amount of comments that was coming in, where's that wee ugly guy? Where's the wee guy with specs and all this? No, you honestly, you were missed, mate. You were missed. Welcome home.
That's lovely. It's lovely to feel wanted, you know. That's great. And I did miss as well, obviously yourself, Keith, but the commenters and that as well, you know. It's funny.
You've got a wee fan club going. Good on you. I think you're outgrowing this show.
Well, listen, I think for both of us, no more holidays. We'll just call it that. You're going to say you're off this week or something, aren't you?
I hate to break it to you. No, I've got nothing planned.
Aye. Well, look, the best place for
Judith Chalmers here.
The best place I think for us to start is the Premier Sports Cup. Obviously, the semi-final draw has been, and Celtic versus Rangers, Keith, and Motherwell.
Yeah, Russell Martin last seen taking off his shoes and walking into the deep end at Loch Lomond probably this afternoon. That's not really the news that he needed. It does set up quite an occasion, doesn't it? Celtic Rangers semi-final, so much going to be on that game. Is Russell Martin still going to be the Rangers manager when it comes around? I mean, massive. And, you know, whoever wins that tie would then, you know, be heavily fancied to go on and lift the trophy itself. But I'm delighted for St Mirren and Motherwell. Motherwell are playing some great stuff this season. Yes, I think they could do with finishing off. You know, if they could get themselves somehow a prolific striker, what a chance they've got, because they're trying to play the same I think the same idea as Russell Martin has for Rangers. They're just executing it way better. They're really good to watch. Yeah. And St Mirren, you know, what's not to praise about St Mirren over the years under Stephen Robinson, continually punching above their weight in the league, getting into top six, qualifying for Europe. And now they've got this shot at getting to a major final. So I'm really pleased for the two of them, because you would look at the draw and you think Celtic and Rangers will avoid each other, and that's bad news for St Mirren, bad news for Motherwell potentially. But yeah, it's all set, and you know what you know, how much is going to be on that Old Firm game when these two come together at Hampden. You've seen the unrest. We saw it again with the Celtic supporters. They're not letting go. They're like a dog with a bone in terms of the protests against the board. You've got Rangers protesting against the manager, and between them, they must be, you know, these are real big days for if you have a print shop anywhere in Glasgow, because you know, the business they're doing is astonishing in terms of banners and posters and all sorts. So what's that going to look like by the time the two of these arrive at Hampden? I mean, I have to admit, there is something about Celtic and Rangers and Celtic going at each other at Hampden in a final. But on this occasion, I think, you know, this has got a lot of intrigue. This is heavy intrigue going into that.
Well, the games are actually almost 6 weeks away. The 1st and 2nd of November, the semi-finals will be played on. So as you say, Keith, a long way from now in the world of football.
Wow, I mean that's like a lifetime away, isn't it?
Aye, particularly where Russell Martin and Rangers are concerned. On that, I caught up with Record Sports Andy Newport earlier on today. He was at the Rangers game yesterday. I caught up with him just to get his take on things. But shall we start on the Celtic game today then?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, the one guy that stood out, I thought, again, was Sebastian Tunecki. I mean, he looks like one hell of a find.
Yeah, it really does. But again, and this is the kind of crazy situation that Celtic find themselves in at this moment in time, where they're kind of seem to be annoying their own supporters, satisfying nobody, not even their own manager. You can't help look at the difference this guy's made in 2 games, albeit, you know, it's a small sample size. I get that, but he looks terrific. I love seeing it's almost like a throwback. Gets the ball at his feet, and the first thing in his head is, "Can I beat my man? Can I do something? How do I hurt the opposition?"
Mhm.
And it happens, it's not just every now and again. It is every time he gets the ball, his first thought is, how can I do some damage here? He's got really nice close control, a good turn of pace. His goal today was excellent. Great link up with Ian Atchell for Celtic's third, which really killed the thing as a spectacle. A minute into the second half, but he looks really, really good. If he can, if he can, and what we don't know yet is there a level of consistency there? Will some wingers go a bit hot and cold? But for his first 2 games in a Celtic shirt, he's been outstanding in both of them.
Yeah.
Exactly what Celtic needed. And as I was going to say, had he been playing against Almaty, I know this is one of these arguments, and this is one of the things that Celtic fans, and I think quite rightly, because you're not talking about fortunes here.
No.
They got him for just over 5 million. Even if they had to push the boat out to get him in earlier and spend 6 or another 500,000, that would have been worth it, because Celtic would have been better tooled up to go into these Champions League qualifiers. And if you look at the way that he's played in these 2 games, I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have caused some serious problems over the course of 2 legs against the Kazakhstanis. So that even when they're getting things right, they're getting things wrong, if you know what I mean. And that just heightens the sort of frustrations and the level of toxicity between the stands and the boardroom right now for Celtic.
Mm-hmm. We've got comments coming in. If you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so. Mark says Tunecki's so good, he made Yang look good too. Timmy says we look great, by the way, Keith, which is lovely. Tunecki will go for 30 million. And Frank says he's a little like Jota, continually wanting to go forward and take a player on.
I think when you look at Celtic today, there's the things to feel good about. There's a lot of them, and they're very good. There's also some worrying elements, not just entirely the protests and what impact that might have over the period. If it has an impact on the players, because the fans are still getting behind the team.
Yeah.
But I thought some of the stuff at the back today was, and I don't wish to be hard on Partick Thistle, because I actually thought they kept plugging away, and they certainly approached the game in the right manner. They try to play football. But some of the suicide squad stuff at the back that Celtic were guilty of today, in between Carter Vickers, Scales, and the goalkeeper Sinisalo, that gets punished at a higher level. And Celtic are about to step back into the European arena this midweek, obviously, on Wednesday night in Belgrade. Stuff like that needs to get chucked right in the bin, because that could be really costly against a higher level of opposition. I think it's good for Celtic that Kieran Tierney gets his first 90 minutes. That shows that he's moving in the right direction. But stuff at the back, not great. I know that Nygren puts over, I think his 2 crosses lead to the 2 opening goals. I'm not sure that Celtic are getting enough out of him just now. I think he started well, but is he really contributing enough to keep Arnie Engels out the side? Don't know. So there are some issues, but I think overall, Brendan Rodgers has been talking about wanting the intensity back into his team style of play, and I thought that was the bigger picture from the game today. Straight from the first whistle, Celtic were on it. They were passing the ball forward. They were going forward with purpose and intent. I think they had 3 shots in the opening 5 minutes, all of which sailed well over the crossbar. But the point is that in Brendan Rodgers' mind, I think is a lot more like the Celtic identity that he's been looking for, and which hasn't always been there this season so far.
Yeah, I mean, Mark is one of a few people in the comments saying, remember how we're saying the same thing about Nygren, he's fallen off a cliff. But just Celtic overall, Keith, does it speak volumes about Brendan Rodgers' ability as a manager that these protests don't seem to really touch the team, affect them at all?
Yeah, well, he's masterful in the way that he handles it. And before you went away, Daniel, we've been talking about that big Friday press conference, what it was going to look and sound like, and it was a masterclass from him in terms of how to conduct yourself in a really difficult, tight spot. He struck all the right tones, and basically he's brought the supporters with him. And if anything, it feels as if the connection from the stands to the pitch is stronger. in some weird way, even though the supporters are venting all their fury towards the director's box, the connection with the team feels strong, and Brendan Rodgers is very skillful at managing to encourage that and foster that, and that's where they are right now. The supporters obviously aren't hiding their fury towards the guys at the top of the staircase, but they're there to back the team. They would have enjoyed aspects of that performance today. I'm sure Brendan Rodgers would have done as well. And it's a different picture across the city. So, this is what I'm saying. It really is going to be really interesting to see how this resolves itself, if it resolves itself on both sides of the divide going forward, knowing that the two of them are about to come head to head at Hampden in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, and Michael Nicholson was there today, I think with Chris Mackay as well from the Celtic board. And the one thing I would say though is that you're saying how this resolves itself. I could be wrong, but I don't think this is going away anytime soon, the feeling amongst the Celtic fans.
It doesn't feel like that, does it? And it feels as if, the Celtic fans are making a point of stressing exactly that, Daniel, that they'll just keep coming. They'll keep coming until they get satisfaction, whatever satisfaction looks like, whatever head they want to roll or heads. You wondered, when Celtic put out their financials the other day, you wondered if that might seem like a moment to also announce that there might be change, structural change. Didn't happen. That tells me that, Dermot Desmond is digging his heels in, the board are digging their heels in, and I don't think they've got any intention of going anywhere. So what are you left with? You're left with Brendan Rodgers positioning himself almost as the Pied Piper of Parkhead, didn't you? And the fans are following in behind. And it's now just a matter of, Brendan Rodgers said it himself ahead of the game. He just wants to focus now on what's happening on the pitch, because that's what he can affect. And I think that performance level today, it wasn't brilliant. It wasn't Celtic, their strongest by any manner of means. But I think the fundamentals were there in terms of a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more attack-minded. And I think that Tanuki is certainly, he's a major part of that, because all you need to do is get the ball to that guy, and he's going to get the team on the front foot and moving forward, because that's his every instinct is to go and do that and get at people.
And even Iheanacho as well. I mean, he didn't have a scintillating game, but he managed to get a really classy assist for Tanuki's goal.
Yeah.
And again, another outing for him, which get minutes in the legs and all that.
I think he looks like a player that needs a lot of game time. There looks like a bit of rustiness there. Obviously slotted his penalty really well at Rugby Park. But no, I didn't see too much from him today. Yes, I thought certainly Tanuki and him, you felt the longer the game went on, the more they were looking for one another in terms of link-up play and feeding off each other a bit. That's quite interesting. See how that develops. But I think I think Brendan Rodgers will be looking at Iheanacho and hoping there's a lot more to come.
Yeah.
Because he look, if that's him at his level and that's as good as he's going to be, then he's going to be a guy that Celtic will need to use from the bench. And in games like today's, there has to be a lot more output from him for him to really get into the argument about fronting up the attack in Europe or in the bigger domestic games that Celtic will face. Right now he looks a little bit like what he was, which is a guy that didn't have a club and was available as a free agent. There are little signs, the touch, for the 1-2 for Taneki's goal, it was a lovely cushioned and perfectly, measured touch into his path. But a Celtic centre forward needs a whole lot more than that. And I think it's important to say it is early days. There might be a bit of ring rust there, and he might just need to play his way back into a bit of form.
Aye. Obviously, we're talking about Celtic. They're into the final. Semi-final.
Oh, well. That's quite a leap you've made there, Dan.
The semi-final is what I meant to say, everyone. But Rangers, they'll play Rangers in the semi. Sorry, that's thrown me right off. Look, I take a week off, and look, it's all going to pieces.
You're a shambles.
Well, look,
You're a wee bit ring rusty as well. Maybe you need some minutes back in the legs, Dan, just to
Dan,
get back
you're
up to
natural.
speed.
Aye. Well, look, they play Rangers. That's what I was trying to come on to. They obviously played yesterday against Hibs. Massive game at Ibrox. I caught up with Andy Newport a little bit earlier on today just to get his take on it. Shall we hear what he had to say?
Yes, why not?
Why not? Joined on the hotline live now by the one and only Andy Newport. Andy, a win for Rangers.
Who'd have thought it? They've been rarer than hen's teeth these days, aren't they? So, yeah, a big weight off Russell Martin's shoulders.
I mean, I say a win, and look, Russell Martin's taken a lot, just on a human level, regardless of what you think of him as a manager or coach, he's taken a lot over the last few weeks, so he'll obviously be delighted to get the win. But what did you make of the performance?
I thought there was encouraging signs. I think it's the first sign of encouragement that the Rangers fans and Russell Martin himself will have had for weeks, really. I mean, the last time you saw anything of a kind of upward trajectory would have been that Pilsen game at home. Ever since then, it's been a sort of death spiral. So the fact that they have, certainly put on a performance that showed encouragement, I think will be of a huge relief to Russell Martin. I think there was definitely signs there that finally, at long last, you could see what he was trying to achieve. I think they have simplified the game plan a wee bit. I also think the return of Nico Raskin obviously was absolutely fundamental to the performance, the drive, the intensity, the energy that they had. That's been missing in recent weeks was there, and most of it was because of Nico Raskin. I think Derek Cornelius coming into the back line provided a far better balance, just made them look far more assured than they have done in recent weeks with Nasser Jiga being in there. So, I think that's certainly things that will give Russell Martin signs of hope. But I've written my match report for tomorrow's paper. I said it yesterday on the blog. There is a long way to go before the many doubters in the Rangers support are anywhere near convinced that he's still the man to lead the team forward.
I mean, that's what I was going to come to, Andy. Obviously, a win and they're into the semi-final of the Premier Sports Cup, which is huge, as I say, for Russell Martin, just to get a win any way he wanted, any way he could. But there was still protest during the game. Martin out, Patrick Stewart getting it as well. I mean, will this placate many Rangers fans at all?
No, but I mean, look, one result was never going to be enough to win over his even if they'd went out and won 10-0 yesterday, that it wouldn't make up for all the disappointment and hurt that the Rangers fans have been put through so far this season. So, listen, he has to now go on a run. He has to start with a result against Genk. They have to go to Livy, which is going to be difficult, especially in that pitch. They have to back that up. I think it's Falkirk after that. After the trip to Graz. He has to go on a run now of putting in not just performances, but results as well. I mean, I think results are key. I think he's very, very short on wiggle room, but there has to be performances as well. There has to be signs that the team is heading in the right direction. I think just grinding out the odd 1-0 win here and there isn't going to be enough. I think if people are to be really convinced that he knows what he's doing, and let's be honest, he's definitely been stung by that criticism last week in the press conference that the team doesn't look coached. And to be honest, I don't think he's got much of a leg to stand on in that front, because many of the games, especially those two bruised Champions League games, the team was a mess, an absolute mess. It was a mess last week against Hearts for 45 minutes. Yeah, they were hard done by with some of the decisions. Obviously, there's a bad stick aimed his way when he's taking the team up to Loch Lomond and trip up Cornick Hill. Why would they not work it on the training pitch? Was the sort of the accusation thrown his way. But I think you saw yesterday definitely that there's, certainly there's a bit of fluidity there, and that the team has got, a style about them. They could have won by more yesterday. I thought, the second half performance was good again, probably deserved another goal. But also, I think, I said this yesterday, I've said it in my match report for tomorrow's paper, I think they were helped to a large degree by the fact that Hibs didn't come with the same kind of approach that Hearts did last week. I felt that was astonishing. I thought that Hearts had absolutely set the template of how to go and take on this Rangers team, especially at Ibrox. Go and press them high, trap them into their own half, get them ragged, and turn the crowd against them. As we saw when Martin Boyle scored that goal, that obviously get chopped off. Ibrox was already mutinous before the game. Banners, Russell Martin walks out for the game and gets booed, walking out to the touchline before kickoff even. Had they sort of went with that same approach as Hearts last week, I think they could have turned Ibrox toxic again. But they had this sort of game plan of sort of sitting in, soaking up pressure. Obviously, Rangers just playing around them for a lot of the first half. And just try to shell a ball over the top for Martin Boyle. Obviously, get in once, but handled it. So the goal gets chopped off. But I just felt that it was the wrong approach from David Gray. I thought he should have been going after Rangers, should have been get right in their faces. And as soon as once Rangers get their goal, got themselves in front, you saw so much of the anxiety just lift. And there was also a big chance for Hibs just after that first goal. They missed that. And Rangers just seemed to grow from that. They'd had a let-off. They then get the second goal and they were in total command in the second half. I was really disappointed in Hibs yesterday.
Well, you mentioned Cornelius, Andy, who I thought definitely looks like an upgrade in defence. Raskin, I thought, was outstanding, was definitely man of the match. But another player I wanted your take on was Chermiti. I think Rangers fans are still waiting for him to kind of show what he's all about, really.
Well, they're still waiting because he's barely playing. He's only played with 20 minutes across 2 games.
I get that. But
yeah, you're right. I mean, I was speaking to somebody this morning about that. I mean, obviously has a big chance late on. I think he only got 12 or 13 minutes.
It wasn't long, I should say.
Yeah. But he comes on and he's, the game's pretty much won at this point. It might have been stoppage time. He's cleared through the goalie. He's not scored for 2 years. For down at Everton, you think just roll that into the corner and chip away at some of the doubters about not because whether the boy's good enough or not, just over the like it or not, he's going to be judged purely on that transfer fee. If he comes in and scores 15 goals, if he'd signed them for £1 million, most people are going, fair dues. But if it's the second biggest transfer fee that the club's ever spent, people are expecting this boy to be a superstar. And
well, that's what I meant as well, Andy.
He doesn't get that anymore.
Not just how much he's played. I mean, are you kind of surprised he's not just been thrown in for the start, particularly yesterday? I thought he would start, but
no, because I think Majowski. I still think, Majowski came in at a fraction of the cost, but I think he's 26. He's had some football this season in Spain and. Obviously, with Macedonia, he played an old firm game. I think he knows the league. For me, I think he's always more likely to be the first choice in this moment now where Yusuf Chermiti's getting himself settled in Scotland. You've got to say, if they've spent £8 million on the kid, you're expecting him to play a large part. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. But right now, the jersey's Bojan Majowski's. I must say, I think he's had a tough time just in the sense that he's had so little service. I mean, basically, I don't think he's had a cross or a through ball to sort of throw himself at since in his first 2 games, obviously the Old Firm game and then last week it was happening. The service into him for the Hearts game last week was absolutely dire. Absolutely nothing from him to work with. And this is a guy we know if you give him service, he will score, and obviously he gets his chance yesterday. Unlucky, had one cleared off the line, had another chopped off for offside. So, I think he's shown already that he can be a proper Rangers number 9. But you just need to give him service. And I think the big takeaway from yesterday is that Russell Martin will just be hoping that, it's getting that win, that monkey off his back in that sense. But just the hope that if they can settle down some of especially all the protests, and the fact that they've come through a day like yesterday that what could have been potentially so difficult for him, and his players on a human level, just if they can lift some of that anxiety, then perhaps things might just start to get flowing. But I definitely think simplifying the game plan, a better balance at the back with Cornelius, and as you say, Nico Raskin being in there has made a huge difference. For me, it was just a case of him cutting his nose off to spite his face. Yes, he's made his point. Whatever it was, we still don't know exactly what it is that Nico Raskin did wrong. They've not told us that yet, but I say that had to be rectified. You couldn't have a player of his quality sitting on the bench, especially when Rangers were playing as badly as they were.
Aye, absolutely. Andy, as always, it's an absolute pleasure having you in the hotline. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries, mate. See you soon.
Cheers, Andy Newport there, Keith. We've got plenty of comments coming in on Russell Martin and Rangers. Before we dive into them, shall we hear from the Rangers manager himself?
Yeah.
Let's hear what he had to say after the
It's
game.
always fun.
Can a performance this evening like that just be a turning point for you, Russell?
I think, like I said, it can be something to build from, for sure. It needs to look like that more often than not. I can't control anything else, but in terms of performance and us and how we work, I think it will be really, really important for us.
Russell, does that performance from Nico show just how important it is to your side, and more generally, is that now a standard beside the set that it can't fall below?
Yeah, definitely, and I think I just got asked a question about like any regrets and all that stuff. I think that probably myself and Nico will feel similar, like it's disappointing when it went on. Also, maybe it's necessary for the whole culture of this football club, for the players to understand, for Nico to really grow. Contrary to popular belief, we have a good relationship, working relationship. He wants to play, he wants to win, do some brilliant stuff today, but like everyone else, there'll be stuff he can improve on as well, really help him and help us as a group. But I'm proud of him today. He was fantastic, and hopefully, like you said, he's for me for us as the coaches, we found a role that will really suit him and help him, and then he will play in that way to really help the team.
Russell Martin there. We've got comments coming in, Keith. Let me throw a few of them at you. Alistair Ramage, who, if you remember, isn't a fan of Tavernier. That's his motif every day. He says 13 players in, give Russell Martin a break. He has Tavernier dragging everyone down and Raskin telling our opponents our team. Blue Nose John says, you see the difference Nico Raskin makes. He's like an unofficial captain. And JM in the comments simply says, Russell Martin could win the Europa League and we'd still want him out.
That's silly, isn't it? That'd be silly. The idea that Russell Martin could win the Europa League is silly as well, though, given the evidence of what we've seen so far. Look, there's a lot to unpack where this is concerned. I don't understand what's happened with Nico Raskin. I don't understand the logic, but I'm going to tell you this. I felt it from day one, and Russell Martin, as we said at the time, he really threw his players under the bus after that opening game at Motherwell. And I came on the show and I said to you, I think he's talking about Raskin.
Oh, you did, eh?
And also, if you recall, I think early in the season, I can't remember what game it was, but Connor Barron, was it a pre-season game even? Connor Barron came out wearing the armband.
I think it was Bruges in pre-season.
Yeah.
Aye.
Nico Raskin would have been wearing that armband previously.
Aye.
There seems to have been a problem, a real clash of personalities right from the outset. And if, you know, you could see the signs at the time. And what it's blown up into, I'm not sure. And neither man wants to give their version of events. They're very keen to move on, and rightly so. They have to. But it's your job as the manager. And not everybody's easy. There are some characters that are more difficult to manage than others. But if you're the manager, it's your job to assess the importance of this guy at the team and then find a way to bring the best out of him. Find a way to communicate with him. You don't throw a huff and just kick him out of the team. Now, it could be, you know, and you've seen this rumour, and one of the guys mentioned it there, and I don't believe it for a second, about Nico Raskin leaking teams to the Bruges manager. That doesn't fit with what I'm told about Nico Raskin as a person.
Why would they do that?
From people who do know him, right? And the people that do know him, they will concede themselves that he can be challenging, he can be opinionated, but they believe it's more a sort of inquisitive side. If you ask him to do something that he doesn't naturally agree with or think that he should be doing within the confines of a team, he'll ask the question, why you want me to do this? And if I'm Nico Raskin, I've got to be perfectly honest with you. When Rangers started under Russell Martin, when the wrappers come off the Rangers that Russell Martin had in mind in that opening game against Panathinaikos, I could not for the life of me understand why Nico Raskin was getting shoved out to the left-hand side to allow Max Aarons to get on the ball and try and dominate in the middle of the pitch. That was madness. And if I was Nico Raskin, I would be asking questions about that. What is this? What exactly is it that you're looking for me to do? Because I can't contribute. I can't play my game out there. And the guy that you're asking to go into my area and do the things that I would like to do with the ball, he can't do it. So I think, and if that's all it is, if Nico Raskin has fallen out of favour because he was looked upon as an insubordinate for not just going along with what Russell Martin said and having the temerity to ask him questions about it, and that's ended with Nico Raskin being bombed out the team and bombed out the squad, I'm afraid it's really bad man management, if that's the case. And Russell Martin has a lot of explaining to do. Now, who knew? Nico Raskin comes back in at the starting lineup and Rangers look, a far better team because of it. I don't think there was anything tremendously tactical. In fact, I look back now at some of the early sort of games, the earliest games of Russell Martin's time. I'm struggling to see, has he been consistent with what he's wanting? Andy said there that he's it's going back to basics, but it's actually kind of major changes to the shape and formation, which allowed Nico Raskin yesterday to play in a far more natural position and to do what Nico Raskin tends to do when he is playing in that kind of area of the pitch, which is dominate. And he was all over the pitch for Rangers. He was by far and away, by a country mile, the best player on the pitch. Tactically, did Rangers look great? I see Russell Martin come out afterward and he seemed quite pleased with himself. And he's talking about, well, that's the way that I want him to look and that's the way that it'll look going forward. I don't think they were any good.
I don't think they were great, were they?
I think it was two teams that were really looked a bit short in confidence, but Nico Raskin was the outstanding contributor on the pitch and he made the difference. He scored the opening goal and Russell Martin couldn't even really take any credit for that because that was a set piece routine which Rangers worked on when Barry Ferguson was the manager and Billy Dodds was in charge of corner kicks. And we've seen it time and time again. We saw it over that period of last season, the last few months of last season. It happened time and time again. Raskin would get on the front foot, give his guy the slip, dart towards the front post, and Tavernier would try and find him. I think one of the goals he scored against Celtic was exactly that as well. So, and up until that point, had Rangers been peppering the Hibs goal? No.
Not particularly.
I can't think of a save the keeper had to make before Raskin scores that goal. Raskin then plays a major part in setting up the second goal, which gives them all a bit of breathing space. And they did probably relax a little bit into the second half because of that 2-goal cushion. But it looked to me, have you ever went to a house party? Been invited over by,
Never been invited to any.
No, it doesn't surprise me. But if you walked in and you thought, oh, there's a bit of beef here between the husband and wife, there's a bad atmosphere, that it becomes an awkward event. And that looked to me like Hibs were almost walking into the wrong party there. They were shuffling about, looking at the floor. Hibs didn't engage in that game. It was almost as if the sort of surreal environment, the toxic nature of it all, knocked them out their stride. It had a worse effect on Hibs than I felt it did on Rangers, funnily enough. That all said, if Martin Boyle, if his goal stands, if VAR doesn't do its job as it didn't do previously with Lon Shankland, if they don't spot that and Martin Boyle's goal stands, I don't know how that game ends up, because I think that would have transformed it as a contest. And we've seen plenty of evidence with this Rangers side and these players that they go into their shell. Had Hibs taken that early lead, that could have been a completely different game of football.
Oh, just on that, Keith, we've got a few people saying it should have stood. Joseph here in the comments saying his hands in a natural position. But I think I'm right in saying that the law is...
It's not the point. It controls the ball.
Exactly.
You can't into his path.
Even if it's... Yeah, you can't...
The exact same, and that's why there's been such an uproar about Shankland's goal not being chopped off, because it's very, very similar. Not identical, but very, very similar in that the motion of the arm connects with the ball and actually knocks it into his stride, and he goes on from there. And I know there was some ludicrous discussions about that was first phase and it was the second phase the goal was scored, and nonsense. That was a ricket that the VR made, and they got their decision right at the weekend with Martin Boyle. But I'm just wondering, in terms of sliding doors moment, what that match looks like if the goal stands, if it's not spotted, And if Hibs did take that lead, because I think they would have grown more into the game, and certainly, you know, the atmosphere around the place, it was already a tinderbox, wasn't it? If Hibs had you know, taken the lead at that point in the game, it could have got really out of hand. And I'm not sure that the Rangers players would have responded to it in the right manner. But I think they were very fortunate that whatever this row or schism has been between Nico Raskin and Russell Martin, that they both managed to find a way to nip it in the bud. Because Raskin, quite simply, there's a reason that Nico Raskin is playing and walks into Belgium's national midfield. And there's a reason that, you know, apart from being English, that Joe Rodwell's not going to walk into Belgium's national 11. Do you know what I mean by that? That we're talking levels here. And Nico Raskin is on a different level entirely from anybody else. And it's also interesting, and this is where the Rangers supporters will be curious, Russell Martin seems to be, to me, to be edging back a lot closer to what the team would have looked like towards the end of last season had it not had the dramatic surgery overhaul over the course of the summer. When you're looking at Suter and you're looking at Tavernier and you're looking at Butland, did he really want to keep him? There was a lot of talk about he wanted a different sort of goalkeeper. Tavernier got ditched out the side, armband removed. Suter was probably always going to play his way into a regular starting position. But then you've got Diomande and Raskin. They were the midfield pairing. So, do you know what I mean? I think he's trying to rip things up. He's put in different formations. The fullbacks that were looked inverted fullbacks on steroids in the first couple of games under Russell Martin now look far more the more traditional style of fullback. So, is Russell Martin sticking to his principles and his ideas and his theology, or is he ripping it up and making it up as he goes along? But that was certainly a step in the right direction in terms of getting a much needed result. But I think, you know, if Russell Martin wants to delude himself into thinking that this was all about his work in the training ground or taking the team to Loch Lomond, the bottom line is you win more games if you play your best players in the best position. And Nico Raskin is Rangers' best player.
Absolutely. Some comments coming in. Last little visit to the comment section before we finish. Brian says, I, like any other Rangers fan, just want my team to do better than they are. Raskin's a good player, but him and Martin need to be singing from the same hymn sheet. Keith says, the manager might be clueless, but Raskin has to zip it. Can you imagine him giving Walter Smith a lecture? Archie Knox would have booted him up the backside. I don't doubt that, to be honest. We have a couple as well. Basically, JM here saying Nico is by far the best player in Scotland. What manager in their right mind would leave him out? Scott says Raskin's difficult to manage, perhaps, but that's Martin's job.
Correct, Scott.
And just finally, though, Joseph says, Keith, it's only a game. Football players should be able to play anywhere. They're spoiled players today.
I don't understand that point. I'm sorry. I don't understand the logic in that.
I'll throw in a point as well. Is that
Butland should go and play in midfield. Put Raskin in goal.
Why not? Give it a try.
Well, by the way, you wouldn't rule anything out at this point.
I know. You reminded me of Tuneki we mentioned at the start, and I think you're spot on when you say, look, if he'd been playing against Kairat Almaty, very good chance he'd have a big impact and maybe Celtic win. Same can be said of Raskin. Those four league draws, I'm not saying everyone would be a win, but it makes the team infinitely better.
Yeah, well, I said it after the Old Firm. And if Nico Raskin had been in that pitch, there was a very good chance that Rangers could have won the game, because their performance level would have been greatly improved by him, because that's what he does. He's a very, very good football player. Mm-hmm. And it was an act akin to madness for Russell Martin, unless there's been some major breach of sort of etiquette or rules or, standard of behaviour. But I just don't believe that to be the case. It's certainly something that I'm completely unaware of. And I think, according to, what I'm hearing, is that it's more to do with, questioning whether or not the system that Russell Martin was asking the players to play was actually, was actually counterproductive to the level of performances that we're getting. And the results and performances would tell you that I think he probably had a point.
Yeah. No, definitely. In the comments, Mark says Rangers are now 11th in the league. What other manager from the Big Two would still be in a job in 11th? And John says Martin should still be sacked for our league position. I bring that up, Keith, because we were saying off air before we come on, Rangers could find themselves bottom of the Premiership when they next
Aberdeen play twice, Dan, before Rangers next kick a ball in the league away to Livingston on the Sunday, a week on Sunday. And if Aberdeen can win one of them and draw one of them now, I think they're away to Dundee United on the Tuesday night. Difficult, but they do have some talent. Aberdeen are they've got their own problems right now, and I think they're fairly fundamental issues as well that they need to resolve. But they do. There's no question. They recruited really well in the transfer window. They've got some talented players. It's not beyond them to go and get a win either at Tannadice or at Motherwell. One win would take them on to the same amount of points as Rangers. If they could get a win and a draw, they would leapfrog Rangers. So Rangers would go to Livingston in that case, bottom of the table, and that's astonishing. And I don't care. You can have all the gimmicks. You can have all, you can feel sorry for yourself. You can talk about having a chest infection and not feeling great and all that. Look, you're the manager of Rangers. If you're sitting in 12th position of the Premier League after how many games in would that be? 6, 7, whatever it is.
No.
That's completely unacceptable, and it's a stickable offence. Now, the question for Andrew Kavanagh, who obviously arrived ahead of the game at the weekend, Andrew Kavanagh likes being there for the big Europa League nights, so you would imagine that he came for the Hibs game and will stay for the Genk game. So he'll get the chance. He's got his boots on the ground. He'll get a feel for what's going on. And you think that Russell Martin's going to need a big performance and a big result against Genk, because if it goes badly, anywhere near as bad as it did, in the European and the Champions League qualifiers, then I don't know if he can survive it. And I also don't know if Andrew Kavanagh, with all goodwill, could go back to America. If he plans to go back at the tail end of this week, can he really go back there, having failed to address the issues, and just disappear back over the pond and hope it all dies down? I'm not sure that can happen either. So I think these next few days will be really important in terms of the decisions that are made over Russell Martin, over Patrick Stewart, and over Kevin Thelwell, who seems to have got off quite lightly, in my opinion, given the nature of the decisions that he's been making. And again, maybe there'll be some clarity provided if there was a decision made to remove Russell Martin. What was Patrick Stewart's role in identifying him and appointing him? I know he's chief exec, therefore the people will say the buck stops with him. But if he was nothing or very, very little to do with the whole recruitment process, and it was Thelwell and Greta Steinson that were heading that up, and that was a deliberate decision to delegate that decision to football people, then I think Rangers might be taking aim at the wrong man here, if that's the case. If that's the case. But then again, do you know what? Big black mark against Patrick Stewart. He appointed Thelwell.
Exactly. Aye, very good point.
And he did delegate, and he chose. That was who he chose to delegate to, and that doesn't look like a particularly well thought out plan either.
I think you're right when you say the next week or so is going to be absolutely fascinating, and we'll be here to cover it all on Hotline Live. But for tonight, I think that brings us to the end of tonight's show. Thank you.
We're doing a couple of late ones this week, Dan, aren't we?
We are. We're doing a couple of late ones for Celtic, who are playing on Wednesday. Bit odd for a Europa League game, but they're playing Red Star Belgrade in Belgrade on Wednesday, and Rangers obviously playing Genk on Thursday, and we'll be late night for both of them. A jammy show. A Horlicks special.
Pajama party with Daniel Corr. Oh my God.
Lucky you.
Oh, my life's just on fire.
Do you know the amount of girls around the world that would kill for that? You can count them on one hand. We'll be back tomorrow as well. I should say we're back tomorrow at 6 p.m. to do it all again. We hope you can join us then. Keith, thank you very much. It's always a
Thank
pleasure.
you very much, Dan. It's good to have you back, mate.
It's good to be back.
Good.
And thank you for watching at home. Cheers.